All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. I actually just saw that the Jaguars have the 10th best odds to win the Super Bowl this upcoming season. I love it. This is a squad that started 2-6 in the regular season. They finished 9-8. They had a crazy historical comeback victory in the wild card round of the playoffs to take down the Chargers. And then in the divisional round on the road against the team that ends up winning the Super Bowl in the Kansas City Chiefs, they only lose by 7. All right, now they're in the AFC South, and I think the 9-8 finish, particularly the final week, the victory, the 20-16 victory over Tennessee. You also had the 36-22 victory just a month prior to that. I'm pretty sure right now Jacksonville statistically is the favorite to win the AFC South, and I love it. If you watched this team last season, if you watched them in the playoffs, the writing's on the wall. The tides have turned. Jacksonville is now the top dog in the AFC South. So how did they do in the offseason? How did they do in the draft? Well, that's what we're primarily going to focus on in today's video, more so tailored for the draft. But I want to speak real quickly on free agency because keep in mind, the Jaguars came into the offseason $20.3 million over the cap. So we had an anticipation that there weren't going to be any blockbuster moves. There wasn't going to be anything crazy. You just want to continue to maintain and improve your roster from last season that once again only lost by 7 in the divisional round of the playoffs to the soon-to-be Super Bowl champions in the Kansas City Chiefs. So notable additions: offensive tackle Josh Wells. You had D'Ernest Johnson getting some nice running back depth. You did lose nice pieces like Jawan Taylor. However, they replaced him. We'll talk about that in the draft. But the big move is, and I know this was last offseason, but Calvin Ridley's back from suspension. And this is a huge deal because you have Trevor Lawrence, who I have a strong feeling, I have a strong inclination that next year the MVP talks are going to begin. Last season, after a pretty streaky, inconsistent rookie year, Trevor Lawrence, 66.3 completion percentage. He threw for over 4,100 total yards, 25 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. And keep in mind, they already have a nice receiving core. You got guys like Christian Kirk, who had over 1,000 yards last season. Zay Jones was right there. Evan Ingram, who just got franchise tag, very reliable. He actually had just a great breakout season with Jacksonville last season. So they still have a bunch of threats on the offensive side. Now, obviously, you can't forget about Travis Etienne, technically in his rookie season, 5.1 yards per carry, over 1,125 yards. So their offense is looking really good in general. But you bring in Calvin Ridley, who he's a wide receiver one. He's a wide receiver one, and he's about to remind everybody in the NFL that he is a wide receiver one. A couple of years ago, in his last full season with the Falcons, 90 catches, 1,374 yards, and 9 touchdowns. So that is a huge deal for Trevor Lawrence, and just figured I'd throw him in there with the offseason because he's coming back. Now, before we get into the draft, if you guys enjoyed today's video, you like daily NFL content, you've come to the right place. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button. We're actually pretty close to 30,000 subscribers, which still feels super surreal. I love making videos for my state's team. I'm down here in Southwest Florida, so quite a ways from Jacksonville, but I love making Jags content. So if we get this video to 250 likes, that would mean the world to me. Love hearing from you guys down below as well. All right, so kind of the offseason grade a lot of people were throwing around for the Jaguars was like a C+, B-. With a team like Jacksonville from last year to this year, it's honestly was to be expected, like I said, with the money situation. So I don't even really care, actually, to give the Jaguars an offseason grade. I don't think it's really important or indicative of how next year is going to go. Now, in the NFL draft, people aren't really critiquing the Jaguars draft. I just don't think too many people are actually talking about Jacksonville right now. I don't really know what the deal is with that, but that'll change really soon, relatively quickly. I know it's only early May and the NFL draft just finished like a week ago, but once we get into next season, there's going to be a ton of talk around Jacksonville. And that's something I noticed last year, even covering this team outside of Jaguars fans and your solid does his homework NFL insider or reporter or whoever they're throwing out, ESPN, whatever the deal is. not too many people were talking about Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence and just this team in general. I think Doug Peterson did a phenomenal job as head coach, and this team's going to be a threat for years to come. So they actually traded down in the first round. They acquired the 130th pick, 160th pick, and the 240th pick to go from 24 to 27. That's great value right there, first off. But we talked about the loss of Jawan Taylor, which sucks, but he got paid a bag. He got paid handsomely. And Jacksonville acquired one of the best offensive tackles in the entire draft class. Heading into this year's class, the common consensus was this is a deep class specifically for offensive linemen and tight ends. And that's actually exactly who Jacksonville took in their first two picks. You took Anton Harrison, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma, in the first round at pick number 27. I love the pick. I think that is an A- pick at worst. I think he is a day one come in and contribute, and especially with the loss of Jawan Taylor, I think it was a money move. Second round, pick 61, you take Brenton Strange, tight end out of Penn State. Now, the stats won't blow you out of the water. Last year with Penn State, 32 catches, 362 yards, 5 touchdowns, but it's just great, solid depth. I do think we will see an early connection, Trevor Lawrence and Brenton. And then also you got to keep in mind Evan Ingram on a franchise tag. So his future with the Jaguars is still a little bit up in the air. So, why have one good tight end when you could have two solid tight ends? So that's what they did with their first two picks. And it, had some people a little confused. I think the third round pick, Tank Bigsby, running back out of Auburn. I absolutely love this pick. I know you have Travis Etienne, but last year with Auburn, this was a 3-year starter. About 1,000 yards, he had 10 touchdowns, about 5.5 yards per carry. He also caught over 30 catches for 180 yards in the backfield. So, this is a multifaceted, enticing running back, and depth is key. Depth really is key. Now, once again, they didn't take a defensive player, Ventrell Miller, linebacker out of Florida, until the 4th round. They also took Tyler Lacey in the 4th round, a defensive lineman from Oklahoma State. Then we started to see the defensive additions, both picks in round 5 go. And then, we did see Cooper Hodges picked in the 7th round. And we also did see Parker Washington, wide receiver out of Penn State, selected in the 6th round. But, after the first 3 picks, it was mainly defensive oriented. The Jaguars defense, people like to look into the stats and nitpick the Jaguars last year on the defensive side. I view it as a young, hungry team, just both sides of the football. Statistically even, they gave up just 20.6 points per game, which was top 12 in the National Football League. And then more specifically, if we look towards, I'm not saying the Jaguars have the best defense in the league. I'm just saying it's a scoring league where you want to continue to improve your strengths. We know Trevor Lawrence is good. We know their offense has strengths. So continue to improve it. Because defensively, I'm not all that concerned. I know that overtime pick 6 thriller against Dallas, they gave up 34 points. But in the final 3 weeks of the regular season, Jacksonville against the Jets gave up just 3 points. Against Houston gave up just 3 points. Now you could sit here and nitpick it and say, neither of those two teams are great at offense. Well, it's 2023. So, teams are going to put up, even if you have a bad, struggling offense, you're going to put up more than 3 points, especially towards the end of the season. So, you can't discredit, you can't say, oh, that doesn't mean anything because Houston and the Jets had bad offenses last year. While that might be true, Jacksonville also just had a great defensive game. So give them some type of flowers at least. And then the final week of the regular season, you gave up 16 to Tennessee. Now, the Chargers game started super rocky. It was mainly due to turnovers. It was mainly due to Jacksonville shooting themselves in the foot. If we look into the second half, they only gave up 3 points in the second half of that football game. Same thing with Kansas City. You head into halftime. I think if you give up 27 points to Kansas City, that's not a bad number to give up one bit. I think it should be anticipated you're probably going to have to score a number that starts with 3 if you're going to take down Kansas City, especially in a playoff game. So they gave up just 10 points to Kansas City in the second half of the game. So I liked the adjustments. I liked what this defense did specifically in their last 5 games, including the regular season and the postseason. So, the draft grade, I'd go ahead. I'd give it a firm B. There were a ton of draft picks in there. And as the offseason continues to go on, we'll look into it a little bit more deeper. But that's just kind of a vague overall outlook of this Jaguars offseason thus far with the NFL draft officially concluding. So let me know what you guys thought of today's video. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button. If we could once again get to 250 likes, that would be awesome to me as we try and push for 30,000 subs, which is crazy. And yeah, more importantly, guys, go ahead, give me either your offseason grade or your draft grade. I would love to hear specifically about your draft thoughts, Jaguar and NFL fans, down below.